Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to Check Me. If you've been following my page for a while, you know I've covered this topic quite a bit when it comes to college athletes getting paid, whether it's by the university or NIL deals or companies that want to sponsor them. In the previous video, there was a lot of chatter as far as why athletes should get paid. In this video, we're going to break down the numbers as far as why athletes should get paid based off of the revenue they bring in to the university and why the university should be paying these athletes as well too. I believe in a tiered system. This all started pretty much back with the Supreme Court in 2021 ruled a decision against the NCAA that allowed athletes to pretty much use their name and likeness, right? And this pretty much changed the landscape for all athletes, depending on recruiting, all these other things. And people think it's the Wild Wild West. I think it's a great opportunity for these athletes to bring in revenue as they bring revenue to universities. Now, football programs and basketball programs largely are what bring in the most revenue, but of course, football programs, reign supreme. This all happened pretty much in 2014. There was a player named Ed O'Bannon. He was a power forward for a UCLA basketball team, and he saw his, pretty much, his name, number being used in NCAA. He felt that he should get money from the game, but he couldn't get money from the game. Ultimately, he took this to the Supreme Court, and they granted, pretty much money for him, ability for him to get money in the game. EA then said, you know what, let's not make the game. If we have to pay all these athletes, they have to figure that situation out. Now there may be, they're trying to bring it back, football back, but we'll see. But I want to talk about pretty much just how much the programs bring in and towards the university. I want to go to pretty much talk about Alabama specifically, and we look at. But let's break down the pretty much the average tuition around Division I schools is about $1,400, right? And over 4 years is pretty much $5,700. Now, Division I teams can give out 85 scholarships on a maximum all full ride. Now, they may break it down to some partials depending on how they work the money out. The athletes may get some scholarships here and there, and they can bring in more athletes depending on how they go. Now, what does that mean for, on average, every Division I school? A 4-year athlete, $5,700 a year, times 85 scholarships. That means $4.85 million for a collegiate football team in 4 years. All right. Now, let's look at Alabama just in itself, right? Because a lot of people are saying, well, what about the other students? Let's take a look at this, all right? So Alabama had a record-setting financial year 2022, and they recorded $214.1 million in revenue. This is the whole school itself, all right? Now, the football program brought in $130.9 million in 2022, all right? That is 61% of the school's revenue. Right? So 61% of the school's revenue came strictly from the football program. Just understand that, 61%. Now, I broke this down so you guys can see this. Now, for tuition for an out-of-state student in Alabama, for 1 year, if you get the full, fully loaded, it's $53,000 pretty much for a year. And I'm going to go higher in, just so you guys know I'm not being biased towards the athletes. I want to go as high as I can possible, just to show you the impact and how much little they get paid to what they bring into the school. So let's just say, for example, one athlete, a 1-year scholarship is $53,000, right? You have 85 scholarships, for one football team, Alabama, so they pretty much paid $4.5 million total scholarships in 1 year to their athletes. Now, this is 85 students who brought in $130.9 million to the university. 85 students, right? So they paid football players $4.5 million to bring in $130.9 million. Now, let's look at the numbers. Let's see how much of a percentage they bring in, they get paid out on. So if you divide the yearly, where is it? Sorry, if you divide, and this is actually, you divide the yearly of $4.5 million divided by, $130.9 million, you get 0.03. So 3%, roughly 3%, the football team got paid out on the revenue they bring in, right? So for all the other athletes. So understand that. They nearly played 3% of the revenue they bring in for all the students. So that means the students who are reaping the benefits of the revenue right, on their tuitions or however much they're paying or whatever to go to school. These athletes these football athletes are bringing the revenue into the school. Now, University of Alabama set a new enrollment record of 38,000 in 2022. So basically, what we're saying is 85 students made 61% of the revenue that pretty much cover the tuition of 3,800 students, right? And I say that because this is just in football. Now, you may say, well, what about basketball? Basketball is suffering. Men's basketball specifically is suffering because ever since 2010, there's only been 3 athletes that played more than their sophomore year that got drafted in the top 5 in the NBA draft. So going back to that, Kendrick Nunn was the only one that played 4 years of basketball that was a top 5 draft pick. Everyone dating back to 2010 didn't only play up to their sophomore year, 1 year, went to the G League, whatever. And the top 5 picks this year, the top 5 projected picks this year, 4 out of 5 of them aren't even in college. They're going to G League. They're going to play the basketball league in the basketball league in Atlanta. So there are other options. Why would a basketball player play 4 years when they can't get paid and play university? So just to kind of break it down of why students are getting, because students do have the opportunity. Regular students do have the opportunity to do NIL deals. They don't play a sport. But they can do NIL deals if they want or whatever, if they're a prominent figure, etc. But for athletes, the money they bring in and what they bring in to viewership and whatnot, they're not getting paid fairly on. So although the Supreme Court and people are so mad because they feel that this should be regulated by the NCAA as far as how much they bring and what they're bringing in and how they're orchestrating their deals. No, they shouldn't be the case. Athletes should have the opportunity to work out the deals that they want, right? Because the schools aren't paying them. Now, for example, if there's a tier system based on how much you brought in, how much the program brought into the school, and you got paid out on that particular dollar amount, then I get that, right? If you go to the Power 5 school, Texas, Alabama, Ohio State, Georgia, etc., then you get paid out on a tiered basis based on revenue from the school, from the university. You may attract more athletes. But the universities are bleeding, and they're relying so much on these sports programs to just thrive that they can't even pay the athletes outside of what they're bringing, their tuition outside what they're bringing in, because the work they're doing is bringing in more. I just showed you 61% of the school's revenue came from the football program at Alabama. 61%. So 3/5 of the school tuition. That is the revenue coming from the undergraduates, the graduate students, the master's students, the PhDs, etc. Everyone, they are pretty much carrying the school when it comes to revenue. And people have the audacity to sit there and say, "Oh, athletes shouldn't get paid." They are carrying the school, and not to mention, athletes have a higher graduation rate than typically all collegiate athletes have a higher graduation rate than the regular student population as well too. So if you want to talk about, they're not smart, I want to hear that. So how the athletes should get paid, I think the NIL deal should continue. I think that if they really want some organization, the NCAA should set up maybe a list of agents or advisors that can help them kind of manage the situation better. And that's something that these teams are already starting to do as they bring in these NIL deals. So, but I do think the NCAA and these schools, right, are still getting away with not paying these athletes. If you can promote them for the March Madness, you can promote them for the Sugar Bowl, for Tostitos Festival. If you can promote them, expand the collegiate, the college football playoff. You can do all this and use the clips, etc. And you're not paying them out. Then that's the challenge, right? Why aren't you paying them out for that? So I do think that along with NILs, if you want to retain maybe basketball players a little bit better, pay them outside of their tuition for what they're worth and what they're bringing in, then you may see some basketball players play longer. You may see some players who really haven't developed yet, but they got to take care of their family. They go play, and etc. But if they play G League or whatever, they overseas, and they go to get drafted after 1 year. Brandon Miller, the top freshman in one of the top players in basketball for Alabama, he's going to the league just to clear for the draft. So if you want to keep collegiate sports competitive, and this is the same reason why women's basketball is a lot more exciting than men's basketball, because women's basketball, the women basketball players play 4 years. Now these women athletes can make more in 1 year playing basketball than they could maybe 2-3 years playing the WNBA. So 4 years of women's basketball is more lucrative than playing the WNBA. So they stay all 4 years, and that's why it's more competitive. That's why you can follow these league players throughout their career and be excited about them. You get a short glimpse of the NBA and college basketball, men's college basketball, and they go to the next level. Same thing with track athletes. If they're fast, they're not coming back to school. They're going to run collegiately. So if the NCAA wants to get this right, they have to stop worrying about the NIL deals, because it's going to happen regardless. They have to create a system. They have to create an opportunity, right, where the NCAA and the college teams can pay these players out on what they owe to try to retain some of the control of the situation. Now, and that's the thing. It's not about control. And you can't, if you try to control these athletes, these players, it's going to go crazy. You're not going to rectify anything. But if you try to support them, help educate them, then you can better guide them. And that's the mentality of the Supreme Court. That's the mentality of the people, the committee that's trying to say that, hey, look, we don't want this to be state regulated. We want it to be regulated by the federal government and get the power back to the NCAA. That is not going to go over well, because then you're saying, hey, they're going to control. Now the NCAA is going to control the NIL deals. It's not going to happen. All right, you're wanting to control the athlete, wanting to control what they do is just something that's not going to blow over well. And these NIL deals are going to continue to flourish and continue to go. And I think, and I hate to say it, the NIL deals, I personally believe it has, and I have to look into this, has brought more attention to sports. And the players got to be held accountable, and they get an early dose of learning. But this is part of what's happening now, and we have to accept it. If the NCAA wants to get control, take some of that revenue, a bunch of that revenue that they bring in, and give it back to the program. 61% of Alabama revenue came from football. Can it get back into the players' pocket so they can feel more comfortable, get more access to certain things? Just saying. Let me know what you guys think, though. I'm gonna continue to follow this topic, and I think that athletes, collegiate athletes should be one step closer to getting paid by the NCAA. The NCAA is so cheap and won't pay the players. It's the reason why we don't have NCAA games and collegiate games anymore, is because the NCAA doesn't want to pay the players. That's the main reason. If the NCAA said, hey, look, we're going to pay the players a certain amount for you to be on EA, then we have a video game. But we don't, because the NCAA doesn't want to come out their pocket. They say, let's not pay them. Let's let the companies do it, and let's keep the revenue we still bring in. So let me know what you guys think. Add something in the comment section. I'm looking forward to hear what you guys say, because you guys had quite a bit to say on the last video, which I'll link, somewhere here or in the comment section.